What's going on, Warriors? Welcome to I can't believe I'm even saying this,
I
episode
can't either.
19 of the Legacy Warrior podcast. I am here with my partner in crime, my better half, Stephanie McKinley.
Hey, Warriors.
Man, we got a prize conversation for you today. I cannot wait to dig into this one. It's something that Stephanie came up with for a topic just based upon around a lot of things that she's been seeing and some experiences that we've had around failing forward. And I want you to think about this just to start the podcast today. I want you to think about when you think about Oprah, when you think about Michael Jordan, when you think about Joe Rogan, when you think about Steve Harvey, Thomas Edison, J.K. Rowling, Colonel Sanders, gosh, we could probably name so many different people. What's the first thing that you think about? Success. You think about how they just won at life. What you don't think about.
Definite success stories. That's what I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
What you don't think about is failure. Every single one of these people, everybody who's ever done anything worth talking about has failed and stumbled and been in the arena of life and got cut and bruised and knocked on their behind and got up and kept swinging. Because the difference between success and true failure, which to me is just regret in your life, is whether or not you get up and whether or not you keep moving. So I'm so jacked up to talk about this one today.
Yeah, you guys, I love this subject because, oh man, Walt and I had so much fun even just prepping for this show because we have so many stories and so many examples of times that we have failed in life. And I just love this concept of failing forward and failing your way to success because that's really what it looks like. You cannot have success without the failures. So we can't key in on this enough. I see this as like, this is one of our major success tools. This is another one of those tools for your toolbox because this is the way that you change your mindset around success because you cannot get there without going through a process and a journey that is going to involve failures along the way. And that is the good stuff.
And you know what's so crazy is over time, I have really transitioned mentally to even utilizing the word failure. I actually don't even use it in my own life because to me, failures have always been an opportunity to learn. Think about in your entire life, anytime you failed at something, you really learned a super valuable lesson. And it reminds me of doing Quick Start years and years and years ago, which was like an Amway online. And, we had put 150 people in our
multi-level
downline.
marketing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, multi-level marketing. So we had put like 150 plus people in our downline. We never really made the money from it that we thought we would. And so it could have been seen as a real failure. And I think for a long time I did. We gave a 2-year window. After 2 years, we just thought, okay, it's not really working the way that we thought. Let's transition and do something different. But Steph, I think about the lessons that we really learned along the way. So as we're narrating some of these stories to you guys today, I want you to think about and maybe even take a pen and write down some of the times you thought you failed. And based upon the perspective of what you have now, what did you actually gain from those moments? How has it helped you prepare you for your greatness and where you're at or where you're going? So for us, I remember you getting up, being literally terrified to speak in front of people. And we'd have, 50 to 100 people there. And you're getting up and you're talking in spite of your fear and really failing forward in those moments too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember it was even just we actually got together at someone considered in our up level, I guess you would call it. We were at their house and we had our downline, our group of people was all there and we were just gathered around in this living room and we had to get up there and talk. And I remember just feeling like I'm sweating bullets. I'm thinking like, can I really do this? Like, I don't want to do this.
If we had cell phones back then, Steph would have been like, I need to take a call. Walt, go ahead. You can finish.
And it's funny to me. It's so weird. I don't know why, but I almost feels like in those intimate gatherings where you're in a small space and it's quieter and people are
Hmm.
really close to you. It's almost like it's worse than when you're in front of this big crowd where you really can't even see anybody's face because there's so many people. I almost feel like that's less scary because I don't know what it is. It's like their eyes are just like,
Laser focused right on you.
yes, exactly. So yeah, I that was really really hard for me, but it what's crazy is, and I didn't feel like I did a good job. I felt just weird, awkward the whole time. And but some people came up to me after and told me like that they really resonated with me and that they felt the sincerity and some things like that, and it really started to change my perspective
Hmm.
on that and getting up and sharing, in that way.
And here you thought you were going to go up there and just literally probably trip on your way up, knock the whole whiteboard down, fall down, have to run out of the room and go cry in the car. We would have to end the meeting early, feeling like you're going to throw up the entire time. And
Mm.
now, did you go up there your first time ever? I think about my first speech and crush it. Absolutely not. But the only way that you ever improve in life, the only way that you get better, and by the way, it's not like you didn't do great anyway. We're so fearful of failing that we allow ourselves to get paralyzed and we don't even take the chance to step into our greatness that's waiting for us on the other side of this door of this fear of failure, that we just live in this quiet desperation. Ultimately, we really live in regrets. And so,
I want to share for a second that I think of Rocky. And when I met Walt, oh my God, he was into the Rocky movies. He had me sit and watch the whole marathon of all the
oh,
Rocky movies.
hold up. Let me jump in. Look, hold up. I made her watch it. I made her watch the first two
You
episodes, y'all.
did.
We were, I think
I was trying to be a good
I was like
girlfriend.
21, 2021. You're like 19 years old. And we're watching this Rocky movie at her house. By the third Rocky movie, she was like
Well, I
air
remember
punching
thinking like, oh
and
God, like this great. I gotta watch this guy movie. Like I grew up with brothers too, so I must like great. Another thing that's all it's totally for men. Like this isn't what am I gonna get out of this movie? Okay, like I'll do it because it's quality time with him. And then yeah, as we got into the movie, I was like, wow, there's actually like a love story here, and
she was throwing
I,
air punches. She was throwing air punches and yelling at Rocky to get up. I
I got
mean,
so into it, and I was just like, and then I was like, this is like the one of the best movies ever. Like I
mm-hmm,
never really realized it, and I was like, oh, I'm so glad he had me watch that because I saw so much about, and this is what I think of like when you fail forward, like think of Rocky, like think of how his journey to success, like you see the consistency, the
mm-hmm.
discipline, the the falling down, the you know you got to get in the ring. That's what I think of. So it's
Yeah,
almost like,
that
we
arena.
say arena a lot, but you got to get in the ring. And when you get in the ring, it's not like you're going to be able to go through it without a fight. You have to fight in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to get blows, you're going to get punches, you're going to get knocked down and you have to get back up. And that's really what this is all about is everything. Like we can't win if we don't even get into the ring, and you have to expect that when you get in the ring, you're going to get knocked down. That's
Mm-hmm.
part of the
You're gonna get punched
process.
in the
And
face.
yeah, it's part
Yeah.
of the process and part of the journey. And the journey and I should say the win is so much greater when you've done that.
Well, don't you think? I think I love the Rocky analogy. We didn't even talk about doing
No.
that for this, but it's such a great analogy for this because he was getting punched, he was getting knocked down, but the guy just never quit. We all have that
Hmm.
internal resilience. The fear is what keeps us on the ground. He kept getting up, and then as the stories carry on, these fight scenes carry on, he's taking steps forward and taking steps forward and taking steps forward and he's swinging and he's fighting and he's still getting hit, but he's still taking steps forward, and he just
But you see
doesn't
him out
stop.
there running every day and all the things
Yes,
that he had to
yeah,
do every day, these like
mm-hmm,
tasks that the mundane tasks you don't want to do, that you have to do every day as practice. He had to do that practicing every day out there running miles. He didn't want to be running. He liked the
mm-hmm,
fighting part.
right.
But you have to do some of those things to get to the place you want to be. And I just
And
think
by
it's
the way, in the first one, he lost to Apollo Creed, right? Everybody would have
Mhm.
thought he failed, but he didn't fail. He learned valuable lessons
Mm.
in that first one. He learned different techniques,
Mhm.
different things that he could
Learned a
do.
different way to
Maybe
fight.
adjust his training. Like he learned that, you know, he
Mhm.
had the resilience to actually get up, even though he didn't win in everybody else's eyes. He was still winning at life and finding the success and building and putting tools in that toolbox that he could utilize in order to come out successful. And everybody's version of success looks the same. To me, it's like the perspective. And then when he
Mhm.
won, right, he's like crying and he's like so hyped up and he's like, Adrian, you know, and
Yes,
because
the
the
pride. Yeah.
failure and the effort and the coming up short and then almost making it there, like all those things will give you massive perspective. And ultimately, the perspective gives you gratitude and allows you to just love the journey that you're on. I think we get so caught up in like the end state of wherever we're going that we don't ever sit, be present, and have the gratitude and then celebrate the failures that taught us what we needed to win. Robert Kiyosaki, and you know, we'll move to the four keys after this, but Robert Kiyosaki is another great example. So, like
Yes.
when we were doing Quickstar, did we make millions of dollars doing it? No, but
Well,
it
one
got
of
it.
the greatest things of Quickstar was they had us reading books all the
That's what
time.
I'm
These
talking about.
self-help
Mhm.
books that to show you the types of mindset you need to be successful. And one of the books we read was Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert
Yeah, that was
Kiyosaki.
our first one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he talked about how he um you were going to say he started out in like a wallet business or
yeah.
something.
He made back in the day the old surfer wallets, probably
Those
in the
Velcro
'80s. It was a
wallets.
Velcro wallet and
I
opened up.
remember that.
And he is actually the creator of that and created this multi-million dollar business and then lost everything.
Right. So it looked like he had the success and
Mm-hmm.
lost it.
Made some mistakes. The market changed. He didn't keep up. But now this guy,
Yes.
I don't know if he's a billionaire, but he's got to be really close. He owns this entire real estate empire. He's helped so many people become millionaires through his books and the teachings that he has. But the crazy thing is, there's no way he would be able to be who he is today without having that failure. But more importantly, not failing and then sitting in the pity and allowing the self-doubt and the fear of judgment and of others,
Yeah, he
like,
could have just quit and been like,
yeah,
I failed. I can't do
yeah,
this.
let it shatter his confidence where he never tried again and nobody would ever know who this guy is.
Mhm.
But the legacy is truly born in the fire. The legacy is born from the experience. The legacy is born from the failure. And if you allow yourself to lean into those learning opportunities to improve who you are as a human being, take those lessons and execute on your game plan in whatever direction that you head after that, that's where legacy is born. And that's where success is born. And that's not only how you change your life, you change generations after you. So really take a pen out as we talk about some of the stuff. So we're going to get into the four keys because I think the Robert Kiyosaki is a great example
Mhm.
of our first key, and that's just embracing the failure and how we've had to do that in our own life too.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about our four keys. And the first one being to embrace failure. And we just talked a little bit about that, how that's part of the process of winning. And the best learning comes from that
Mhm.
failing, as
Don't you
we'll
kind of
call it.
think, Steph, the only learning comes from that? Think about it. When
Yes.
things are smooth and it's gravy train and everything's a well-oiled machine around you, you're not learning.
No.
You're soaking it in. You're like, this is great. This I'm living my best
Well,
life
that's what
right
I was
now.
gonna say. When everything's perfect and it's going the way you want and it's all good, it gets boring.
So the struggle, embracing the failure, embracing the struggle, embracing the life challenge you might be going through right now, relationships, parenthood, job, you know, the market shifting and changing, and maybe you lost some money in the stock market or the housing market. Embracing these things and realizing, like, damn, like, how do I take what's happening, learn lessons so I can come out on top as I continue down life? If right now you're sitting and listening to this, you're like, I'm going through this now. Hell yeah. Get pumped. Embrace what's happening around you. And by the way, I know it's actually tough to do this, but this is a mentality and mindset you need to have. And, you know, Robert Kiyosaki is a great
Yeah, I was
example
gonna.
because what did we do after listening to Robert Kiyosaki?
Right. So we read this book about him and this how he went through this success and failure and success again. And he had us pumped, like we wanted to get into the real estate business. We're like, we can do this. We could do real estate. And we found out definitely the hard way through a lot of mistakes and failures that it's not as easy as it seems.
Yeah, you can't just read one book and all of a sudden you're a real estate tycoon. Dang it.
Not at all. So we were going to share a little story about our first, like the process of us getting to the home we're in now. Because we'll tell you, so when we did this quick start business, part of what we did too was dream building. And so we would do different things to go dream build and go look at the things that you actually want, whether that's
the goal in front of you.
Right. Like whether that's a car or a house or so we'd like go look at cars that we liked. We went to this. So when we were in San Diego, that's when we were doing Quick Start. And this is pre-kids. We went to look at there was like one of those home shows where you could go tour these homes that they're selling. And so we were like, oh, that'd be great dream building. Let's go look at them. And at the time we were living in an apartment.
They're $1 million homes. Now, this is 20 years ago, guys. It ain't like $1 million home today. So yeah, $1 million home, beautiful.
It was $1 million home in San Diego back in like 2000.
Yeah.
And we, at the time, were living in an apartment. So this definitely was dream building for us. And we were really dreaming of buying our first home. We really wanted that. And so we saw this home and it was $1 million home. And we're like, this is it. This is the house that we want. And we knew we were pretty far from that. So that's why it was definitely dream building for us at the time. But we kept that vision in our head of that house that we saw. And I have to tell you guys, the home we live in today is very similar to that home we saw in 2000 that we were dreaming of.
Okay, now that's not a humble brag,
no,
right? That's not us bragging on it, because we're going to tell you about all the failures we had, all the super valuable and sometimes very expensive lessons learned that we had in the last 20 years since we first looked at that house that could have paralyzed us and made it so where we never even ended up where we're at today.
So first I'm going to say we lived in 3 different apartments, a hotel room, another home, a condo, another home, and now this one. So that's how many times we moved, and that's how many times we were in a different house that was not the dream house.
And remember, a lot of this time, I was still pretty new to the Navy. I wasn't an officer then, so I wasn't enlisted then. Stephanie worked retail. So we just lived where we could afford in all of these moments, knowing that in the back of our head, we really wanted something like what we saw. So the vision is there. How we get from point A to point Z and obtaining the vision and the lessons we learned along the way were so valuable. And by the way, going from, one really nice apartment in San Diego across the freeway.
And that wasn't our first apartment.
Right.
We started in our first apartment with roommates. Okay. And it was a pretty nice apartment, but we had roommates. And then we actually went to a not as nice apartment when we moved out with them so that we could live on our own. So we kind of took a step back to a not as nice apartment so that we could live by ourselves. And then Walt gets transferred to Japan. So I spent a little time living there alone.
About 8 months, which was hard for you.
8 months by myself in that apartment. And then I actually had to do the move by myself because he was in Japan and he couldn't leave. He was out to sea and stuff. And then I moved out to Japan with him. And literally we were put in a Navy lodge. And that's where we were for like 4 months. And then they ended up.
Well, then 9/11 happened.
Yeah, 9/11 happened.
And that changed everything.
And I won't go into that whole story, but we ended up getting sent to San Diego from there. And I ended up only being there 4 months. It was supposed to be a 3-year tour. And they never got us out of the Navy Lodge. So we were in a hotel for 4 months. And then we went to San Diego and we stayed with some family for a while and looked, but we found this amazing apartment. And it was on top of this mountain in San Diego, this beautiful view. It was right over the
It's called
Charger
La
Stadium.
Mirage.
Yeah, it was called La Mirage.
Fancy. Pinkies out.
Oh, and it was super nice. Like all the amenities. It had like a full gym, this gorgeous pool.
Yeah.
And we had this awesome, we got an awesome one that was on the end that had this huge balcony. It had the biggest balcony in that place. And well, we just thought we were living life then. And
no kids. There's San Diego Charger players there. There's San Diego Padre players. Their cheerleaders live there. Like thought we were balling out.
Yeah, and then a lot of circumstance happened.
And then we read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yes, and so now we're to the point where we read that book and we were doing Quick Start and we're like starting to dream about what we want to do with our life. And like he said, he was an E5 in the military and I was working retail at the time. And a lot of circumstances happened, but we decided to start a family. So we get pregnant with our first child. And now we're like, okay, well, we don't want to stay in an apartment. Like now it's go time. We need to really figure out how we're going to get a house.
Well, first, before that, because I know you're going to go to like why we didn't buy a house, thank God, there. But I think it's important because we went from there. We made the decision for Stephanie to stay at home with the kids and raise our family. That's what she always wanted to do. That's kind of what I envisioned. And that's what worked for our family. So we went from this super bougie, dope 2-bedroom apartment that we lived in a beautiful spot in San Diego, to about 10 miles up the road where it was a lot hotter, where Miramar, the base was at in Miramar. And we stayed in an old townhome on the base so she could stay at home. So outside looking in, people would think like, God, you guys really look like you're going backwards. So during this process, I want you guys to think about this for your own life too, and ask yourself, how many times have I thought I failed when maybe I took a step backwards so I can take 3 steps forward? Sometimes you have to slow down in order to speed up. And in these moments, we were slowing down in order to speed back up. But we didn't always think that. We thought, God, man, now we have to downgrade. Now we have to not live as nice. Now we have to just so you can stay at home, which is way more important for us. So we're learning valuable lessons.
Well, but there was a lesson in there before we moved to the military housing, because we started trying to look at buying a house in San Diego. Well, at the time, this is when the market was crazy over there. Like houses became really expensive. And
this was like 2003-ish.
To even get a very small home, it was like $300,000-$400,000. And this is back in 2000. So at the time we lived in Mission Valley, San Diego, which is like very central San Diego. Like it's an expensive area because you're right in the heart of the city. So we started looking at the outskirts of San Diego, that were far from us.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of searching, found this home that was, we thought, oh, well, it's pretty nice for a first home.
Yeah.
And, we did the tour and all that. And then we were getting real serious about buying it. And they recommended that we do an inspection and something else. And at the time we didn't have a lot of money. So we were like debating like, well, do we really
a few $100 for an inspection was really a lot for us.
Yeah. It felt like a lot at the time. And thank God we did, even though for us, we were like stretching like, oh, is it really worth, like, should we do this? And we ended up doing it and finding out that there was like major issues with the home. Like the foundation was cracked and all kinds of stuff that we would have never known if we didn't do the inspection. So we were thanking our lucky stars that we did do it, because we almost didn't. And so anyway, fast forward, that gets us to where we decided we were looking for an alternative to get us out of the apartment, because you have to sign year leases, and we knew his tour was going to be up. So we were looking at transferring. So we're like, well, we don't want to sign another lease. So he found out we could get into this marine housing.
And we felt like in that moment, we failed. Like, damn it, man, we couldn't get a house.
And then we paid that money and didn't even get the house.
Right.
So
we read this Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. Like, they were even going to throw in their older BMW 3 Series for us. I don't know if you remember that little red one that was in the garage. They were talking about throwing that in. But they had cracks in the foundation. Their code, their extra room wasn't even up to code because they did it themselves. It was crazy. it was such a valuable learning opportunity and learning lesson that we didn't see it as that at first. We just felt like we failed at trying to get our first home. And so went to base housing, ended up going to Jacksonville, Florida after that, and we bought our first home. Another valuable lesson. So we didn't go look at it. We got into an up and coming part of Jacksonville, Florida. You guys that have bought homes in up and coming areas, it typically means it's not a great area, but we didn't think that. The neighborhood looked pretty. The pictures looked nice.
Oh, and my brother lived there. I even asked my brother like to tell us about the area because we saw it was a brand new construction home, so it was going to be brand new. We were all excited about it being a new house. Yeah, and that it was in our price range. And so I asked him, and he even told me, he goes, I don't think that's a really good area. And he was like telling me he didn't, but I guess we didn't want to hear that because we were so excited about the home.
We're like, you're single, bro. You don't even know. You ain't looking at family neighborhoods. And so we get there. Well, it's not in a great area. It's actually in a pretty bad area. Our neighborhood was nice. So, and then the housing market crashes while we're there, and I'm getting ready to transfer to Virginia Beach area, from Jacksonville, Florida to Virginia Beach. I get greedy when we go to sell the home. And I want 155 instead of the realtor that said we should do it for. No, I want 215 instead of like 175 where they thought they could sell it out. So I'm like, you know what, rich dad, poor dad, I'm fitting to just rent it out. Starting real estate empire 101, Steph. Let's go. What's going down? And we lost our behind on that house. We were like to the point we had savings for the first time, and not a lot because I was still enlisted at this point. Savings going down, all these things happening around us.
We lost our whole savings that we had,
all of it, and barely made it out by the skin of our teeth, and had to take out a small loan to pay for the remainder of what we couldn't sell the house for.
Well, because we rented it out, we couldn't get a renter, and so we paid 8 months of 2 mortgages because we now had gone and bought a condo in Virginia Beach and rented out this place in Jacksonville. And it wasn't a good area to rent in because it wasn't really close to the things that like people the bases and things like that. So yeah, we didn't really take any of that into consideration. And this was a huge learning lesson because.
But what did we learn? What did we learn?
We learned you do your research for one, not to get greedy. We didn't listen to it. We didn't listen to the real estate agent telling us what price we should sell it at because we wanted to sell it.
Because he didn't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
We didn't listen to the advice of someone who was actually the expert in their field. We didn't do our research to buy the house in the first place. And then we didn't do our research to think about whether that was going to be a good rental.
Well, so what did we learn? We learned that location matters. We learned that don't buy sight unseen. What a dumb move.
Yes.
Right? Like
we will
spend
never
the money to go fly.
House without seeing.
We learned some valuable lessons. So what happened? We went to Virginia Beach. I had just become an officer at this point. We actually went and looked. I think I did actually. I took a trip out there. I looked at it. I found us a place. Stephanie's like, I trust your judgment. It was a great place. It was a condo. It was really nice. It was in a great location. We lived there for a while. Lost our behind on our place there because it was a secondary time that the market collapsed even more. And we end up, though, from all these experiences, though,
and we thought we were only going to be in that condo for 3 years. We ended up in it for 6 because we couldn't really sell it.
Because we couldn't afford it. And what's really cool about this is all these lessons, right? All these failures. Now we just talked to you guys about how we just screwed up some decisions, all these steps in the way, right? Like we were making some not so great decisions because we didn't have the experience.
We were young.
We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were trusting our gut. We didn't really listen to people that had more experience. We just kind of went for it, which is great. Like you have to be able to go for things in order to figure out whether or not it's for you or figure out how to win within the structure of what you're doing. So from there, we went to DC. I was stationed at Washington, DC. And we bought
and we tried to sell that condo and we ended up having to do a short sale because the market was still really bad. This is when it really tanked. This is when all those banks had given out loans that people couldn't afford and so the market collapsed. And we had to move again. We had to because we had orders. And so we didn't have a choice. We had to sell the house. And we had learned from the house we tried to rent. We decided, okay, we're done with the real estate stuff. We're not renting again. This isn't for us. Like, and so that was a valuable lesson too. And like we were saying, we lost our whole savings on that. And so it was an expensive, valuable lessons. And when we went to look at this house in DC, we found our dream home.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually a reasonable price, but the problem was selling our condo. And Walt had to go through a huge research process to find this loophole through the military. And it was something Obama had put out that was like some.
Well, I mean, yeah. So there was a whole process to that.
We got to
But
break even.
ultimately, lessons learned the whole way, right? Buy our dream house in DC, beautiful home. It was amazing for our children and where we're at. I kind of thought I'd stay in DC and finish my career after the Navy. I ended up not wanting to do that because if you've lived in DC, you realize the traffic is bananas, and I couldn't take it anymore. So finally, after all these homes, all these places we've lived, all these lessons learned about how we just fell short, we finally made a good decision. And we made some money from selling our house in DC. It felt
That's
amazing.
the first time we made money off of selling our home. And reading Kiyosaki's book, we thought, man, real estate's the way to go. And he's talking about all this money he made from it. And we're thinking like, oh my God, we have like really failed. Like we didn't see that at all.
But you know what, Steph? Neither of us were really passionate about real estate. We just wanted to make money. Let me tell you what it really did for us. Because then we moved to Arizona. We've been in this beautiful home for 7 years now. We feel very blessed to be where we're at. And we were smart because all the lessons learned we have. Our property has literally more than doubled in value since we've been in here.
Yeah. And now this home that we're currently in is the most equity we've
And
ever
we
had
couldn't
now.
have done that without all of those, not the failures, but the lessons we learned along the way, the lessons that helped us make better decisions every time we bought a place.
And at any point in there, when we lost the house in Jacksonville with all the stuff that went wrong with that, we could have just said, I guess we're not meant to own a home. We should just quit trying to even buy one.
Right. We're renting. Screw that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And avoided, because it was such a hassle. It was so painful to lose all our money and all of that.
Yeah.
But we still kept taking the next step and the next step. And we still kept pushing for what we really wanted. And so we're sharing that just to show you, we started out in an apartment dreaming for a certain home, and we did get it, but look at the journey and the process we went through to get to it. There was a lot of failure in there.
Journey, 20 years of learning lessons, some of which we didn't learn right away because we were hard-headed. So if you're out there and you've been on whatever journey you're on for 20 years and you struggled to learn lessons and you beat your head against the wall multiple times instead of learning the lessons and making the adjustment, it's okay, man. You're not alone. We've all done that.
And something like I love about that story too is that nothing is linear. Like the learning process, the journeys and things that we go through, it's never linear. You see like we went up to come down, we went up to come down, and it was kind of all over. Like there was no straight path to get it. We at points we went backward. It would look like we went backwards. We went to living in places that were not as nice to get to a nicer place. And we've done that several times before we got to what we really wanted, which is what we see in our life. If you look at any process you've been through, you probably notice that the same thing. You've had this up and down journey to get to where you're at. And so we're going to move on to our.
I want to say one more thing to that. So if you feel stuck, if you feel like you're not progressing, then sit back and ask yourself, what am I not learning from these things that I've been doing? If you've been married multiple times, what are you not learning from those relationships? If you messed up on some houses like we did, what are you not learning from those? Because ultimately the learning is built into the failure if you allow it to be. And when you can learn from those opportunities that you have in your life to improve who you are as a human being and improve your decision-making ability, the way you move through the world, how quickly you can get to the next phase of your success will exponentially increase. So ask yourself today, what are some things in my life that I'm feel like I'm struggling with, like where I'm not in a winning season? And what am I supposed to learn so I can move into the winning season and what's waiting for me on the other side of that? And when you're doing that, you have to be willing to take risks. That's number 2 today. Damn, like stop being so afraid. I love TD Jakes has a video that I see a lot, and he talks about if you want to be average and mediocre, then don't rock the boat. Look, if you're on here, you're not listening to this podcast if you're average.
Right.
You ain't doing it. I already know if you're coming here and you're listening every single week.
You're here for growth.
Yeah, you're in the arena. You're a legacy warrior. You're here to crush life and just make things happen and change legacies and be the best version of you. But you can't be the best version of you without taking those risks, because risks are the lifeblood of your legacy. Whether or not you take them is going to equate to what you get from your life. And man, we have taken some risks. Man, I think about Steph, talk about when you went back to school at 30 years old and how that felt so risky for you. And what did you learn from that?
Yeah, I got to tell you guys, to give you some context, I was in college when I met Walt, and I had done 2 years when we decided I moved with him to Virginia. I took a year off. I did 2 more years in Virginia, and then he got sent to Japan. And so ultimately I had to make the decision that I'm going to leave it up in the air. I had 1 year left to graduate, and I didn't finish, and I left with him to Japan.
Took a risk.
Yes.
To get married to me and go to Japan and not finish your last year of college.
And I have to tell you guys, it was a huge, it was always a goal for me. I don't know. It was just something that I felt like I had to accomplish. And I just really, really wanted to do it. And so the whole time it was like bothering me that I didn't finish. I left that open because I put so much work and effort into getting that, and I just wanted to have it. And so almost each place we went after that, like, so I told you guys that after Japan, we went to San Diego. Well, I tried to get back into school there because there was San Diego State University was really close to where we were at. It was a public school. So I tried to get in. Well, the business school was impacted for 2 years. So we would be transferring again. I couldn't get in. And ultimately, so then I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to work, but I want to try to get a job that's a little bit better than just
A little more professional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I had just been working at Walmart in the photo lab and doing that while I was in school. And then I was moving around with him. And so I didn't get a chance to really work in something else. And so I was like trying to get a job with like the electric company. And we even had a connection, and she got me an interview.
Remember, for Cox Cable too.
Yes.
And you were so devastated when you didn't get that job, because we thought we even had an in.
And I was like, oh, I thought by putting like, I have 4 years of college on there and like had some work. And so I thought I could go for something that I could make a little more money and start making more of a career of. And I just could not get in.
Do you remember,
I even went to the interview.
Even Verizon, Cox, like you were really trying to get jobs that you felt like were a little bit of an elevation outside of retail.
Well, because I thought, like, if I can't finish school, I want to start working on something I could build into a career.
Right.
And so I was like trying for these jobs and putting myself out there and interviewing. And I even went and bought a suit, and I was all dressed nice for it. And I even had a connection from somebody he worked with that was in there, and she got me the interview. Yeah. And they even told me like they were so impressed with how I like my whole presence. And so I'm like thinking, oh, I got this. I get a letter or a phone call, I can't remember what it was, telling me I didn't get it. And I was just crushed. I mean, really crushed.
I remember you were crying because you just felt so defeated. I felt defeated. Like you failed.
I felt really defeated. Like I just started to really question my own, like I was really having self-worth and just like, God, feeling like I stuck, kind of like, where do I go from here? And so, but at that point it was like, I got to get some kind of job. I just need to get a job. Cause I was like, I need to do something before I like
make some money. We got this apartment.
I'm getting really depressed and
this bougie apartment to pay for.
Yeah. So I ended up going and interviewing so I was like, well, I went to the mall and I interviewed at a retail store called Robinson's May. It's like a Macy's, and got hired on the spot. But I had this I was not appreciating it because, like I just said, I had gone for stuff I thought was higher and got rejected.
But you were stuck in your failure, like
Mm-hmm.
your perceived failure, not the lesson. You were stuck feeling like you failed and wallowing in that for a little while because your ego was hurt and your pride was hurt. And I understand why, because I felt like that
Mm-hmm.
too, right? And so
I think I was 22 at the time.
so if you're out there and you've been a little bit stuck in the failure and you're wallowing in that pity and your ego's hurt and it's generated some self-doubt and your confidence is struggling a little bit, like it's okay, man. You're not alone. We've felt that way in some of these situations.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, but what I had to realize is I wasn't ready yet. I needed to do more growing and learning before I was ready for that type of job. I thought I was ready
Yeah.
and not realizing that I wasn't.
What was your plan, not God's
Yeah,
plan?
and honestly, that's exactly it. It was my plan, and I had to realize that that wasn't the plan for my life. And
Mhm.
ultimately, the way I ended up viewing it is that God was shutting the door, and I was supposed to start a family. I was supposed to be a mother because the other huge dream of mine was to be a stay-at-home mom. I always knew that I wanted children and I wanted to be able to be at home with them.
Mhm.
But I also kind of wanted a career. I wanted to have it all, which I realized like that just wasn't in the plan for me. But anyway, fast forward we went to Florida, then we ended up in Virginia. When we got to Virginia, that is where I had gone to school for my last 2 years
Mhm.
at Old Dominion University when we were there. And when my second daughter got to the age where she could go to preschool, I decided to go back and finish that last year. I didn't get to finish. And so now my kids are like 6 and 4. And I felt like, oh well, they're getting to where they can sustain a little bit, and I could do this on the side.
Yeah.
And I only took 2 classes at a time, and it took me 2 years though because
Really,
I
you
was
were
doing it
like,
part time.
Walt could feed the kids if I got to go to class at nighttime. Okay, so cool. They could have regular food now. He'd be all right.
But you know what, you guys? Oh my gosh, I can't tell you. Trying to go back to college. So now I'm 30 years old. I have a family. I have 2 kids, and I'm going back to college with kids that are 18 to
19,
19,
21.
20. And I'm feeling like this old person with all these young people. And I know I didn't necessarily look as old as I was, or people didn't see me that way, but I felt like I was. It felt so awkward and uncomfortable. And like, I can't believe I'm even doing this.
Mhm.
And my brain did not function the same. I felt like, oh my God, I have mom brain. Like, I can't memorize stuff like I used to. And oh my gosh, at first it just felt like it felt horrible. I was like, why am I doing this? Like, what did I get myself into? And you know what? I did, but I ended up graduating and getting that degree I always wanted. And it
Mhm.
wasn't easy at all. And it was such a struggle. Let me tell you, anybody who's gone back to school and you have kids at
Yeah.
home, especially young kids, whoo, I don't recommend it.
But what would you have? Okay, let's say you finished your degree and it was super easy, right? Because let's say you got this photographic memory and you're like, this was so easy. I could manage everything in my life, and I none of it's hard. Would you have really felt the gratitude that day that you graduated? Wasn't the power in the
No,
struggle?
I gotta tell you, that day on stage, and I think we have a picture, maybe a video, and you guys know I'm more introverted. I'm not really the type of person to be like, look at me in the spotlight. But when I got up there, I'm not kidding you, I was like doing a dance, like I got my degree. It was the proudest moment, one of the proudest moments of my life. And I just I was on cloud nine that day.
Mm.
It felt amazing. And that's why, because there was such a journey to get there. It was not easy. I went through so much to get it that
Mhm.
it just was the most amazing day for me.
Well, it was taking the risk, going back, being uncomfortable, feeling like you're
Mhm.
not smart enough anymore, like you got mom brain and you can't really think, and plus you got a family and you got a husband, and I remember for me it was so cool to see you graduate. I
Mhm.
almost get choked up talking about it now because I was so proud of you for taking the risk and going all in, and I mean, damn, you even got hit by somebody riding a bike across campus. She almost lost her life, y'all, while she was in college. This person hit her. You guys don't know. Stephanie has this thing. She'll lift one eyebrow up, and like now that she's getting a little older, she's getting extra savage. She probably almost smacked the person up because they hit her hard with the bike. Like they weren't even paying attention.
I forgot that part. Yeah, I was walking to class one day, and the kid he hit me head on with a bike. Like totally, he fell off his bike, dropped all his books, and literally hit me with the bike. So it didn't feel good. Knocked me off my feet too, and I felt so upset. And I'm just like, oh my god, I feel so like
stupid. I'm 30 walking around here, get hit by this dumbass on this bike. She probably wanted to kick the book over there. You know, but that's what it feels like sometimes. It's like, man, you're in this arena and you're grinding and you're doing everything you can and you just can't see the end and it's freaking hard and it's uncomfortable. And then bam, someone comes and hits you on the bike. You get knocked on your ass and now you're really looking up and you're like, God, I want to get up and keep going. I can't do this anymore. And then you got a channel. You know what? I can do this some more. I owe me to do this some more.
And I gotta tell you guys, there were many moments in there where I was really struggling, and I had to have Walt help me sometimes. Where I was like, I remember having a marketing thing, and I was like, "Can you explain this to me? Because I am not getting it." And there were nights I had a night class one semester, and he had to cook dinner for everybody, and there was a lot of give and take in there, and it was hard. It was really, really hard.
And by the way, that's when our marriage struggled the most too, because all the pressures, right? So just know on the other side of that, guys, if you're embracing the failure, if you're taking the risk, if you're good, we got 2 more things we're going to talk to you about. If you're doing those things, you're going to win and you're not going to have regret. Do you know what? I actually don't regret not buying more homes now and like doing Airbnbs and getting into the real estate market. And I know people have been super successful doing all that. Because you know what all that quote unquote failure taught me? I'm just not passionate about it. So I don't really want to do it. And that's okay. Because sometimes the risk you take shows you that thing you thought was for you ain't actually for you. But sometimes you take the risk like Steph did going to college. She realized like I needed that for me. And man, because it was so freaking hard, because someone hit me with the bike, because I had to eat my husband's cooking a couple times a week. I'm so proud of finishing this. And wow, what a place to be.
But you know what? It did show me too. After that, I decided not to pursue it. I was like, this is too much. I want to focus on my family. I can't do it all. I wasn't enjoying what I should have been enjoying, is what I learned. And that's what we want to say too is, you know, sometimes in the process and journey, that's where all the learning happens. And that's where, you know, sometimes it's like, yes, it just shows you this is exactly what I want. And sometimes it shows you what you don't want. And ultimately I learned I didn't want that. And all those years I thought I did, I had to do it to find out I didn't want that. And it pushed me into my actual purpose of being a mother and wife that I needed to be at that time. And I'm finding out now that I'm still getting to kind of do the career thing I wanted to do. I never thought it would be this. This isn't what I thought I'd be doing, but I got to tell you guys, it's pretty awesome.
But all those risks, jumping up in front of everybody, feeling like you were going to throw up. We were doing the quick start thing, doing stuff in college, like all the experiences you have as a mother.
I had to take a public speaking class in college, and I thought I was going to die having to do that.
Doing all of that, you think about the messy parts of our marriage and the things that we learned, the risk we took believing in each other again and fighting for our marriage, the risk you take when you surrender and you trust that God has a plan for you and his plan might not be your plan. When I was in corporate America, I thought my plan was to stay there. I was killing it in corporate America. Took a nervous breakdown for me to realize that wasn't my plan. God had the door open all along for me to become a professional speaker, for me to write a #1 best-selling memoir, for me to be able to do this podcast with Stephanie, and for us to bring this masculine and feminine perspective. And now we got a top 5 podcast. It only took 5% podcasts in the whole world. It only took 12 episodes to get there. We're just getting started. Is it scary? Hell yeah. Are we still taking risks? Hell yeah. Are we still messing up? Hell yeah. Are you still doing all that? Hell yeah. And that's okay. Embrace that. And I think this takes us to our next key is, man, you just got to keep a positive attitude. You got to stay in the arena. You deserve to be in the arena, but you got to earn your spot to stay in the arena. You got to get up when you're not feeling confident. You got to keep swinging. You got to get up when you get knocked down. You got to get up when you don't feel good. You have to be disciplined and consistent and stay in the arena. It makes me laugh because there was a commercial. I think about parenthood in this, like keeping a positive attitude. Steph and I had never been parents before. when we first became parents, man, like especially Stephanie, she read all the books. Then she like told me about all the books, and we were so careful, right? I think trying to swaddle the baby, Monica, and you feel like you got it tight, but she still gets her arms out and waves her arms around and wakes herself up out of a sound sleep at 3 a.m. for the 14th time that night. We're exhausted. And we felt like we're failing as parents. And I'm like, well, I don't want to kill my kid and suffocate them because it's like a boa constrictor with this swaddle, but I'm not doing it tight enough. There wasn't one of those swaddle things you could buy now where you just Velcros it and all that. No, you had to get the little blanket. You know what I'm talking about? You had to get the little blanket and do it. Yeah. And we had to get up in the late at night and drive Monica around. And she was a really tough baby.
Well, we got to tell you guys, because everybody who's been a parent, and you know what we're talking about. The first time you're a parent, your first child, you're so scared and nervous that you're going to do something wrong and you don't want to mess it up and you're responsible for this life and you're trying to like almost bubble wrap your baby. And Walt brought this up because it's like the bathtub.
Oh man. So, okay. So I'm going to take this one over because I love this story. So it's so funny because I even see like really old pictures of us doing this with Monica, and it's bath time. And when they're really little, they're infants. If you're a parent and you've got like the thing that fits perfectly in the sink, it's this special tub and you can lay them in there and it's at the right angle that it needs to be for babies. And, you get what's the smell of the stuff that makes them tired? Like when you're washing them, them.
Baby wash?
Yeah. And it has or the lotion has like the smell.
Lavender.
Yeah. Lavender. That's what it is. And you get your lavender lotion out. You got your body wash right there for the baby and a super soft thing to wash them with. And the special towel. And it was like a little ducky towel with the ducky thing. So their head doesn't get cold. And man,
towel, yeah.
Like, you're trying to do everything you can not to fail as a parent, even though every other aspect you feel like you're super struggling. And you're doing all this careful. And then you have your second kid. You have your second kid, and I'm in there in the shower, and Steph's like, here, take the baby and wash Brianna while you're in there. Because you realize through the experience, like you don't have to be so careful all the time with them. You're still being careful, but it's like, man,
I told him like even changing their diaper, like when you on your first one, you've got like this pad and it's on a special table and
it's got the
you've got wipes warmer
up.
And yeah, there's a belt on it and there's a diaper pail to keep the diaper specially in there so it doesn't smell, and you do all this perfectness for changing their diaper. Well, that goes out the window real quick because they're having blowouts wherever.
And you know what? This is why you got to keep a positive attitude, though, right? Like if you're listening, you guys, we're being funny on this one because you do got to keep a positive attitude. I can't tell you how many nights Stephanie and I felt like we were just failing. Like we couldn't figure out where they've been fed, they've been changed, they've been rocked, and you're just struggling, man. And if you can't find the joy in the struggle, if you can't keep a positive attitude about it. So if you're in that struggle right now, especially if you're parents, man, we feel you. No, it gets better. And then they become teenagers and it's a different kind of struggle. So I think
back to the drawing
no matter what you're doing, I think about the risk we took of moving with each other and getting married too. And the struggle we had in some of those really rough moments of our marriage and the way that we were always
like our first apartment. When we first moved in together, you go through this, like you think you're so in love and everything's perfect and great. And then you move in together and the reality starts setting in because, he starts leaving his clothes all over the place and I'm nagging him to pick him up. And he's over there.
Stop nagging me about it's on one chair in the bedroom. Calm down,
Yeah, and you're going through all these struggles of trying to figure each other out, and
Mhm.
I
And
mean,
she's trying to cook dinners, but she's figuring out how to cook because she
yeah, I
hasn't
didn't
cooked
know how
a
to
lot of
cook.
dinner.
I'm
So
like,
you
I
might
can
have
make a turkey sandwich.
some burnt, or like, hey, I put this Salisbury steak Stouffer's thing
Yeah,
in
we're
the
eating microwave meals
some
and
instant mashed potatoes, But it's crazy stuff because I think that's the joy, man. Like we're laughing
Mm.
and it's genuine for us, you guys, because
And it wasn't funny at the time.
even right. Even all of those experiences has given us so much gratitude for where we're at. But we don't remember the things that we bought each other or the things that we bought, the things in life. We remember the experiences and we remember the struggle where we can really laugh about the struggle now, but it's given us perspective, not only that keeps us in gratitude, but it's also given us perspective, just like it should for you. If you think about it in this way, it'll give you perspective of the necessity of those struggles, the necessity of the times when you felt like you were failing to get you to where ultimately you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I want you guys to really, and this is why we always bring up looking back on your life resume. Go back and look at your experiences that you've had where the times that you felt like you failed. But when you failed, what did you do? Did you give up and say, this isn't working, this isn't for me? Or did you keep taking steps forward until you did get the success? Because that's where the magic is. It's not, sometimes we have a tendency to just think, if it didn't work out, oh, I guess this isn't for me. And we quit. And what we didn't know is, had we gone one more step, we might have realized our dream. And so that's where this process of failing forward, we love this concept because it really is, you never know when your time's going to come.
Mm-hmm.
You never know if that one more step is going to be the
Is the
step.
step.
And whoa, I hope you saw through all these stories we've been sharing that, I mean, look, had we quit at some of those points, we would have never realized what we needed to. We wouldn't have got the lesson, and we wouldn't have appreciated it when we did reach it because we wouldn't have looked at it that way.
Well, I think that leads us to our fourth key. What a perfect segue right there is to celebrate the success. Man, guys, I spent so many years, like the goal was always the finish line for me. The goal was only a point on my entire life journey that I was going through. And you have to really celebrate the success, all of it. Celebrate the learning lessons that you've overcome. Sit down and really write down and ask yourself, what were the times in my life, in hindsight, with perspective,
Hmm.
that I thought that I failed? And what did I actually learn from those? And how has it helped me today? You want to be able to continue to fail forward and you want to be able to continue to propel your life in the direction that it's headed. Those are the memories that you need to pull from. That's how you start to really celebrate the success of how far you've come versus the one thing that might have been a little bit of a bump in the road yesterday. So don't allow the things that are happening right now to derail your entire life and end up putting you in a position of regret. Celebrate the success. Stephanie and I mean, when we were talking about doing this episode, we were really laughing.
Yes. I mean, really, we had so much fun talking about and prepping for this show because we have had so many experiences where we look back and go, oh my gosh, like, man, we failed our way here. Like, we wouldn't be here today without all that stuff that was so like, and at the time, it didn't seem fun. It wasn't, and we didn't get the lesson then. But looking back, it's like, man, you just start to see how it all connects and lines up. And that's why I say, like,
Mhm.
this journey isn't linear. It's all over the place. And like he said, the good stuff is that stuff that you do learn and you do grow. And when you can look back at it with that perspective, changes everything.
I love that. And I want you to ask yourself one thing. When was the last time you sucked at something? When was the last time you really took a risk to do something outside of your comfort zone? Are you in comfortable misery? Are you in quiet desperation? because you're just doing the status quo because that's what we've always done. I want you to ask yourself, am I really willing to step into the best version of me by doing something that sucks again? People that have worked in jobs for 25 years, they get so much apathy. There's like resentment. They might be amazing at what they do, but they don't find joy in what they do anymore. They don't find joy in what they do anymore because there's no challenge. Lean into your life's challenges, find joy in your life challenges, be okay sucking at something like we did at the beginning of this podcast when we
Yeah, you
started
guys
it.
go back and listen to our first show.
Huh.
I mean, I've had people tell me they can see my growth from our first episode to now. Like, go back and listen to our first episode and listen to the one now and tell me that I haven't grown in that.
And we think we're celebrating the success of having haters. We had somebody told us y'all need to get a new profession. We had people
They told
tell
us
us
we were cringe.
we were cringe. For all you youngsters out there, cringe. What did the one guy say? You said you look at your life resume, and the person put, what the actual F, all in capital letters, is a life resume. And so even the haters, man, like, we're just having fun with the whole thing, because we know if we continue to take risks, if we continue to suck at the next thing so that we can improve and get better, and we continue to follow God's plan in our life, we're going to really leave a life where we live a life where we leave a legacy. You are meant to leave a legacy, but the legacy starts with you. And the legacy starts with your ability to embrace the failures, know it's part of winning, to take the risks, to know that the risks are the lifeblood of that legacy. Keeping a positive attitude while you're in the arena and you get knocked down, celebrating the success, really analyzing the journey, really reflecting back on how far you've come so that you can see how much further that you're meant to go because you're willing to actually grow during the process. This is what's waiting for you on the other side of this journey, on the other side of this season, maybe where you're struggling right now. No, you're not alone. That's why we shared all these stories. We have been there. We have done that. We have got the t-shirt. And you know what? At some point in life, we're probably going to be in that season again. And that's okay, because in that season, since we have perspective, we're leaning all the way in. We're learning all the lessons, and we're growing to be the best version of who we are.
Yeah, I wanted you guys, actually meant to start the show with this, but I want you to think back on like your first job or your first day at school, or and what was that day like? Because I think for almost everybody, we can recognize when someone else is new at a job. You know why? Because it feels awkward and uncomfortable and we don't know anyone and it feels lonely. But then what does it look like a year from there, 2 years from there?
Mm-hmm.
How much did you grow in that job? How different are you now than you were on your first day? And that shows you, it's all just, it's in the process. You can't get better at anything without practice. You just have to keep practicing and keep doing it, and look how much better you get. You know, some people, by the time they've done it a year or two, they look like an expert. But on that first day, they didn't look like that. And we've all had that experience. It's like I said, when I went back to college at 30, I felt so out of place. But by the end of when I was on that stage getting my degree, I was a totally different person by then. I mean, and I would not trade any of those things for the lessons that I learned and the appreciation that I've gained. That's everything. That's the good stuff. It's like he said, if we just won every day and everything was great, like what's good in that?
Yeah, we don't build resilience.
Right. I don't build anything.
I heard, I'm going to close this out with this because I heard this quote and I posted it a couple days ago. And I said, I would have been amazing if it wasn't for me.
That's deep.
Ask yourself, are you amazing because of you? Or could you have been amazing, but you stopped yourself from being that? And I said, man, that should be signed regret. Don't allow lack of confidence. Don't allow those times people told you weren't good enough and you couldn't do it and you were never going to be anything. And those things that you start to believe in yourself negatively, don't allow those things to stop you from taking risks. Take stock in your life of the times that you took the risks and what you learned and how it's helped you get to where you're at today. Lean all the way in. If you're in that growing season right now, if you're in that place where it seems like you're not going to be able to get out of it, know that you're not alone. And step into the abundance and the success and the life that you deserve. Because starting today, you're going to have the courage to take the risks, enjoy the journey, learn the lessons, and celebrate the success the entire way. So look, guys, I actually, I'm going to switch the ending up a little bit right now. I actually want to hear from you guys. Stephanie wants to hear from you guys. I want you guys to go to our YouTube page, go to our Instagram page, and I want you to tell us what risk you're willing to take. What are you willing to suck at? So that you can continue to evolve who you are as a human being. What are you willing to get into the arena for? That you know you've been wanting to get into the arena for. And after listening to this, you're willing to have the courage to actually do it. So go to our @Legacy Warrior podcast on either YouTube or Instagram. Leave us a DM.
Right. As warriors, we want to hear how you're out there being a warrior. We want to know what arena are you getting into? Just like the gladiators back in the day, or
and who's
like Rocky in the Ring, or what arena are you willing to get into and get beat up a little bit so you can have that win?
And who's waiting for you to do that to feel inspired so they can do the same thing? Not who's waiting to listen to this episode. No, they're waiting for you. They're waiting for your story. They're waiting for your courage. They're not waiting for mine and Stephanie's. They're waiting for yours. Don't deny them their best life because you weren't willing to step into yours. You're amazing. You're a warrior. Own that stuff and step into your power like never before. So look,
get out there and fail forward.
Let's go. Let's go. So until the next time, stay in the arena of life, keep fighting, keep failing forward, and
leave this world a little bit better than you found it.
See you guys next Tuesday.